Friends, today's story will take you into a world of reality mixed with magic, fear, and amazement. This is an unforgettable incident from my life that still gives me chills. Let's begin a tale that will leave you spellbound. It all started back in 2005 when I was a 5th grade student. One ordinary morning, after the school assembly, we returned to our classes. During the second period, an unexpected commotion erupted throughout the school. Everyone was confused and concerned about what was happening. Soon, we learned that a 4th grade student, Kashif, was aggressively attacking his elder brother, who happened to be in the same class. Teachers and students rushed to the scene. Peeking into the classroom, we saw Kashif holding his brother by the neck with one hand and pinning him against the wall. His behavior and movements were so bizarre that everyone was terrified. One of our teachers, Mr. Sohail, who had some knowledge of spiritual practices, immediately sensed that Kashif might be under the influence of a supernatural entity. He instructed all students to return to their classrooms and managed to free Kashif's brother after much effort. Kashif was then taken to an empty room. There was a graveyard near our school, and it was believed that the entity had latched onto Kashif from there. Mr. Sohail returned to our class and ordered a large metal container to be filled with fire. When the setup was ready, he asked some students to bring Kashif into the room. At first, Kashif appeared perfectly normal. However, as soon as Mr. Sohail started reciting certain incantations, Kashif's demeanor changed completely and the entity revealed itself. It spoke in a deep, frightening voice and introduced itself as Johanna, a spirit residing in the graveyard near the school. Mr. Sohail questioned Johanna, "Why are you tormenting Kashif?" The entity angrily replied, "My children were eating their meal when Kashif accidentally kicked it, spilling everything." Mr. Sohail calmly explained, "Kashif is a human child. He didn't know anyone was there eating." Then, Mr. Sohail instructed his helpers, "Capture this spirit and throw it into the fire." Hearing this, Johanna began to shriek and plead, "Please don't burn me. I promise I won't harm Kashif anymore." With that, the spirit vanished. Though the spirit was driven away temporarily, it continued to haunt Kashif at night. It frightened him, harmed him, and made him scream. Kashif's family was at their wits' end. With no other option left, they called Kashif's aunt, Samina, who lived far away. Samina was well versed in spiritual practices and had control over certain spirits of her own. When Samina arrived 2 days later, she brought her spiritual allies along. First, she requested some animal bones and began preparing for a major confrontation in an open field. "This spirit won't leave easily," she declared. "We'll have to fight it." As night fell, Samina arranged the bones in a large circle and lit a fire around them. She began her rituals, summoning the spirit to appear before them. The moment Johanna arrived, the atmosphere turned eerie and menacing. Samina challenged the spirit, saying, "Leave Kashif forever or face us in battle. If you're truly brave, fight us." Johanna let out a terrifying roar and accepted the challenge. It flew into the air and lunged at Samina, trying to strangle her. Samina, however, was prepared. She signaled her spiritual allies for help. The bones from the fire rose into the air, circled Johanna, and dragged it away from Samina. The bones confined Johanna back into the fire circle, where Samina's spirit subdued it. After an intense struggle, Johanna finally surrendered. It admitted defeat and promised never to trouble Kashif again. From that day forward, Kashif's life returned to normal. Many days later, I met Kashif and curiously asked, "So, does the spirit still bother you?" With a smile, Kashif replied, "Not anymore. In fact, it has become my friend. Every week it visits me during my prayers, enters my body briefly, and leaves pocket money in my pocket before disappearing." Friends, that was Kashif's thrilling tale. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned for more fascinating stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. secret of the grave on a freezing winter evening in the secluded German village of Schwarzwald, an air of unease lingered. This village, surrounded by dense forests, was infamous for its ancient cemetery. Known for its haunting tales and centuries-old graves, the cemetery was a place no one dared to approach, especially the children, who avoided it even in daylight. However, 12-year-old Jan and his 9-year-old sister Lisa had always dismissed these stories as nothing more than superstitions. One day, as they played near the forest, Jan and Lisa decided to venture into the eerie cemetery. Even under the afternoon sun, the place seemed engulfed in perpetual gloom, with towering trees casting sinister shadows over weathered gravestones. As they wandered, Jan stumbled on a jagged stone that turned out to be a part of an ancient grave. Upon closer inspection, he noticed a strange symbol etched into the stone, something that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. The moment his hand grazed the symbol, he felt an inexplicable chill run down his spine, as though unseen eyes were watching him. That night, Jan was plagued by a vivid and unsettling dream. He saw the same grave, now open, with a shadowy figure calling out to him, begging for freedom and justice. The voice echoed in his head, and even after waking, the plea lingered, urging him to act. The next morning, he shared the dream with Lisa. Though frightened at first, Lisa agreed to accompany Jan to uncover the truth. The following night, as the village lay asleep under a blanket of frost, Jan and Lisa crept to the cemetery armed with a small lantern and digging tools. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the rustling leaves and the occasional snap of twigs underfoot. The chilling wind carried whispers, or so it seemed, as if the forest itself disapproved of their presence. Undeterred, Jan began to dig at the grave with Lisa holding the lantern, her wide eyes scanning the dark. As Jan dug deeper, strange sounds grew louder, distant murmurs, shuffling footsteps, and a faint hum that seemed to emanate from the ground. Finally, his shovel struck something solid. When they unearthed it, they found not a body but an ancient dagger, its blade tarnished and stained with what looked like dried blood. The dagger's hilt bore the same symbol they had seen on the gravestone. The moment Jan touched the dagger, an icy gust swept through the cemetery, extinguishing the lantern and plunging them into darkness. The trees groaned under the weight of the wind, and shadows seemed to move with malicious intent. Gripped by fear, the siblings clutched the dagger and ran home. The discovery of the dagger marked the beginning of strange occurrences in the village. People reported hearing eerie voices at night, animals acted unnaturally skittish, and some villagers began experiencing nightmares of shadowy figures stalking them. Jan and Lisa, desperate for answers, turned to Hans, the oldest man in the village, known for his knowledge of local lore. Hans's face turned pale the moment he saw the dagger. "This is no ordinary blade," he muttered. "It belongs to a dark chapter in our village's history. Centuries ago, a wealthy landowner was betrayed and murdered with this very dagger. His killers buried it to hide their crime, and ever since, his restless spirit has haunted this village." Hans explained that the only way to end the disturbances was to return the dagger to its original grave. "But be warned," he added, "the spirit may demand more than just that. It may seek vengeance." Determined to restore peace, Jan and Lisa returned to the cemetery, the dagger wrapped carefully in cloth. As they approached the grave, a chilling wind greeted them. Jan bent to place the dagger back, but before he could, it slipped from his grasp and fell to the ground. The atmosphere grew heavy, and before their eyes, a translucent figure materialized, a man cloaked in shadows, his face a mask of anguish and fury. The spirit's hollow voice reverberated through the air. "Justice," it cried. "This blade must find the descendants of my murderers. Only then can I rest." The siblings stood frozen, grappling with the spirit's command. They now faced a harrowing choice: bury the dagger and risk the village's safety, or fulfill the spirit's demand, which could unleash even darker consequences. Their decision would shape not only their fate, but the fate of the entire village. Jan and Lisa couldn't shake Hans's words from their minds. They now understood that the dagger wasn't just an ordinary artifact, but a horrifying key to a dark chapter in the village's history. However, the spirit's plea added a new layer of confusion. Should they bury the dagger and end the strange events, or risk everything to help the restless soul find peace? The next morning, they decided to consult Hans again. Hans said gravely, "This spirit won't rest until justice is served. But remember, whoever uncovers the truth behind this dagger will face grave dangers." Jan asked, "Who killed the nobleman? And how can we find his descendants?" Hans took a deep breath and replied, "This story is centuries old. The nobleman was betrayed by a greedy servant who stole the dagger and used it to commit murder. The servant fled, but some of his descendants still live near the village. With Hans's guidance, Jan and Lisa began searching for the murderer's family. Meanwhile, strange and terrifying events intensified in the village. At night, people reported seeing shadowy figures near the cemetery. Others claimed to hear chilling screams echoing through the air. Fear gripped the entire village. Eventually, with Hans' help, Jan and Lisa traced the descendants of the murderer to an old mansion on the outskirts of the village. The house was eerie and decrepit, with ivy-covered walls and a creaky wooden door that seemed ready to collapse. They knocked, and an elderly man answered, his face a mix of surprise and fear. When Jan showed him the dagger, the man's face turned pale. Trembling, he said, "This dagger, how is it possible? It's tied to our family's darkest secret. My grandfather told us it was cursed and would bring misfortune to anyone who touched it." Jan pressed him for answers, and the man reluctantly admitted that his grandfather had been involved in the nobleman's murder. "My grandfather never found peace after what he did," the man confessed. "He buried the dagger to hide the truth, but it has haunted our family ever since." As he spoke, a powerful gust of wind swept through the room, and the ghostly figure from Jan's dreams materialized before them. The spirit's voice echoed with rage, "I demand justice. This dagger bears the blood of my betrayal. It must be brought before judgment." The old man fell to his knees, trembling and pleading, "Forgive us. It was the sin of our ancestors. We never wanted this burden." The spirit replied, her voice softer but still commanding, "Forgiveness will come, but only when the truth is revealed to all." Determined to end the curse, Jan and Lisa decided to share the dagger story with the village. The next day, they gathered everyone in the church and recounted the tale of the nobleman's murder and the dagger's dark history. The villagers listened in stunned silence, their faces a mixture of fear and astonishment. As the truth came to light, the ghostly figure began to fade, her voice now calm and serene. "You have given me justice. At last I can rest." With that, the spirit vanished into the light, and the eerie occurrences in the village ceased. The cemetery became quiet, but the story of the cursed dagger remained etched in the villagers' memories. Jan and Lisa learned an important lesson: sometimes bringing the truth to light requires courage and sacrifice, but it is the only way to bring peace to the past. The mysterious guessed it was a long, quiet winter night. The air was thick with the chill of the season, and snowflakes blanketed the deserted paths of a remote village called Nurabad. Nurabad was a small, enigmatic village known for its deserted lanes and ancient homes. It was the kind of place where people locked their doors as the sun set, whispering about eerie tales that had woven themselves into the fabric of the village. In one of Nurabad's old rural houses lived a small family, parents and their two innocent children. Life was routine until one fateful night when a knock echoed on their door. The cold made even approaching the door a struggle, but the knocking was persistent. The father hesitantly opened the door, revealing a stranger standing there. His eyes were deep-set and tired, his clothes soiled with dirt and snow. He claimed to have lost his way and needed shelter for the night. The kind-hearted father deliberated for a moment and then invited him in. The first night passed uneventfully, though the children complained of hearing strange whispers in their dreams. The parents dismissed it as a figment of their imagination. The stranger kept mostly to himself, sitting quietly in a corner and quickly falling asleep. Yet, his presence carried an unsettling weight. The second night, the stranger stayed quiet, speaking little to the family. But as they all slept, strange noises began to emanate from various parts of the house. Sometimes it sounded like heavy footsteps on the wooden floor, and other times, whispers drifted near the windows. The children, terrified, ran to their parents' room. The father inspected the entire house but found nothing unusual. The stranger, too, claimed he felt something odd, though his calm demeanor suggested he knew more than he let on. The next day, as the children went to school, the parents tried to probe the stranger about his past. He remained silent at first, but eventually confessed that he had lost his memory and could recall nothing about himself. By the third night, the eerie occurrences intensified. Laughter and whispers echoed from the children's room. When the parents rushed in, they found the children deep in sleep. Yet, as they stood there, the door creaked shut on its own, and the windows rattled violently. Meanwhile, the stranger was nowhere to be seen. They eventually found him outside, sitting in the snow-covered yard, staring at the sky. The father, now angry and scared, demanded answers. The stranger replied in a low voice, "Everything happens in its time." That night, the father had a disturbing dream. He saw a man screaming for help, his cries echoing into a void of silence. When the father woke, his forehead was damp with sweat, and his heart raced with an unshakable dread. On the fourth night, the stranger broke his silence. He told the family a haunting story. Years ago, he said, he had lived in this very village. One fateful day, he was murdered for reasons unknown to him. His spirit had been wandering ever since, seeking peace. Now he had returned to uncover the truth and needed their help to bring closure. The family was horrified but listened intently. The stranger assured them that they were not in danger as long as they helped him. He revealed that a clue to his murder lay in an old, forgotten spot in the village. On the fifth night, the family, though reluctant, decided to help the stranger. They followed him to the village's ancient cemetery, its gravestones weathered by time. The stranger led them to a specific spot, gesturing silently. When they dug into the frozen ground, they unearthed an old dagger and blood-stained clothes. The stranger's eyes filled with a somber light as he spoke. "These are the keys to my peace," he murmured. As the family pulled the items from the earth, his body began to fade, becoming translucent. His final words lingered in the cold night air. "Thank you. I can rest now." And with that, he vanished. The family returned home, their hearts heavy with what they had witnessed. From that night onward, the house was free from any strange occurrences. Yet, they could never forget the mysterious guest who had come to them, seeking solace from beyond the grave.